All right, we've got some action now. Excellent. Anyway, welcome to the right way, our business reviews and podcasts where we talk about all sorts of things around business. My name is Wayne Wright, and my apologies for the little bit the techie stuff, but that's what happens when you do live stuff. It happens. And also, this little tip there: never do Teams Zoom meetings before they take your microphone. All right, so that's a little tip there. Make sure you have to reset everything. But anyway, it's good to have you all here. We've got a lot to get through, so I want to just quickly rush through the sort of direction of travel today anyway. So let me just take you through what that looks like as well. So clearly, we're going to talk about the mindset for entrepreneur and business success. We've got some fantastic information that we want to share with you, and I want to bring in some stardust on the show as well, in the form of Lloyd as well. So I want to do it in a little while, introduce you there, but just to tell you obviously clearly a little bit of introductions, discussions, and then obviously some Q&A. The way we do this sort of stuff as well, that sometimes, please, in each of the platforms that we're on, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, there is a chat feature on that. We see all of it. So whatever you may put into the chat, do so. Feel also that we don't have to wait until the end to ask Lloyd any questions. Then please take an opportunity also at the same time to just put your question in, and if I see it, I'll try and make sure it's included in the show as well as we go along. So just give you an element of what we're trying to do going forward. A little bit about what I do in terms of the companies I'm involved with, but one of them is W Square Solutions. We help companies to grow. We work with business leaders to help them to really, really accelerate their growth. And there's some numbers here, just some highlights in terms of the impact that we've been making in the marketplace here and in Europe over the last 20 odd years. So just give you a feel of that going forward. But that's enough of us. And I really want to just introduce Lloyd to the table, and hopefully we'll just get some get him on screen. Oh, there he is. Very good. There he goes. There he goes. Can you hear me okay, Lloyd?
I can hear you fine, Wayne. Can you hear me?
Perfect. No, that's good. It works. Well, anyway, well, thank you again. I really do appreciate your time. I know you've been a busy man, and it's all been manic for you and for me as well over the last 6 weeks. But anyway, just give you an introduction for Lloyd Gordon. Lloyd has over 20 years worth of recruitment industry experience and 7 years within the Workday ecosystem. And he's been one of the major driving forces behind the success of the Focus Cloud group to date. And he's been the CEO of the last, 8 years? 7, 8 years? I'm not quite sure.
So this year it'll be 10 years, actually.
Oh, my days. Way behind the times.
September will be the 10th year anniversary.
Very good. And I'm sure that he's learned a number of things which will also help to steer our discussions. But his desire and drive to win, he says nothing will stop him creating a successful recruitment agency, and we will hopefully learn a little bit about that. He tells me that he's passionate about solving problems, exceeding expectations, and creating lasting relationships. And based on these core values of 24/7 availability, I didn't know I could call you at 2 o'clock in the morning, Lloyd. You never told me that. But anyway, his core values are 24/7 availability, human approach, knowledge, results, and humor. And when he's not in the office, you'll find Lloyd even in the gym, flexing with the young females. Guys, that's a joke. And if your wife is watching, that is a joke. Flexing with the females, behind the wheels of his beloved cars, and enjoy some quality times with his family. So welcome, Lloyd. It's really good to have you on the show. Thank you.
Yes, good to be here. Thank you, Wayne. Thanks for the invite.
Good. No worries. And I say we've got a lot to talk about the sort of elements of mindset. But just give a, obviously I've done the introduction as well, but just give us a sort of an overview, Lloyd, of where you come today in terms of your entrepreneurial journey, and then we sort of go straight into the whole subject of mindset and how it's so prevalent and important for entrepreneurs.
Sure. So good to meet everyone. I'm Lloyd Gordon. I'm the CEO and the founder of the Focus Cloud Group. I have been in recruitment for 23, 24 years now. I'll kind of jump forward in my journey into the moment when I set up my own business. So basically I spent 9 years in a different business before I started Focus, and performed extremely well. You know, built my team extremely well, and mid 2015, I just thought to myself, you know, if I don't go and put myself under extreme pressure at this stage, at this point in time, I probably never will do. So that's why I started Focus. My experience has been in recruitment, as I mentioned, and it's been in three, or previously it was in three separate areas, which is Oracle, SAP, and Workday. So that's what I set Focus up to do from the start. In the first year, the first 4 months, I mean, the first 4 months of my entrepreneurial journey was a real test of how much I wanted it, right? Because I thought that being a top performer elsewhere would instantly make me a top performer in my own business, and that was not the case. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it was really tough, very, very tough in the first 4 months, a lot tougher than even I thought it would be. And but we got through that. You know, on month 4, to give you an idea and the viewers an idea, I had £200 to my name after month 4. And my plan was to start making money within 2 to 3 weeks of running this business. So therefore I would never get to that stage, but it didn't quite work out like that. Right. So, and after the first year, we'd made a net profit of about 230,000. And I knew it would work, right? I knew at that point it would work. And we stayed, we did the first year doing Oracle, SAP, and Workday. And after the first year, I noticed that the primary revenue that I was generating was coming from this new ecosystem called Workday. So I decided to go all in on that ecosystem. So I dropped Oracle and dropped SAP and went 100% in on Workday. We stayed the same until COVID. And during COVID, the original plan was always to build a global organization that was going to help businesses all over the world to solve their resourcing issues, whether it be permanent or contract, in cloud applications. But of course, pre-COVID, we was only Workday. So during COVID, I set up 5 separate businesses, an SAP recruitment business, a ServiceNow recruitment business, a Salesforce recruitment business, and they were just different cloud applications that are associated to organizations that would use Workday would maybe use some of these other applications at the same time. Yeah. So we were ideally positioned to do that. And in 2022, we had grown through COVID about 480%. So COVID was, personally, it was quite a bad time for me. Because I lost my father in COVID as well, which is another challenge for anyone running a business, right? When you lose a parent, that was unexpected. But on the flip side of it, we grew 480% during COVID, so it was positive. And I had the first opportunity to make my first acquisition, which was a business that specialized in the Microsoft ecosystem. So that was always the plan of Focus Cloud, to have this Microsoft brand. But we acquired that brand into the group, and we've spun up a few more businesses since then. So today we're circa 100 people. We're a $100 million business, and I'm just blessed to still be here and be serving, right?
And that's really a nice little context, because of some of the things I know you're going to share, you know, fits into some of that narrative. I know some of the detail of that. So hopefully you'll bring out some of the elements of that in terms of your journey, because I think, you know, what you just shared, you know, seems, oh, well, that's okay. You know, you've done really well, type of thing. But my gosh, you know, the ups and downs journeys, and as you said, mentally, in terms of that process is really key to ensuring that you could have created the business that is today anyway. Let me just put this quote on. You haven't seen this one before. Well, you probably have seen it, Lloyd, but I want to just stick it onto the screen for everybody to see anyway. And this is quite an interesting one to sort of set the scene for what I'm talking about. And Carol Dweck is the person sort of framed for talking about the sort of growth mindset terminology. And obviously, in this statement here, you can see on the screen, it says that, a fixed mindset is when individuals consider what their abilities and talents are constrained to a fixed set. On the other hand, when individuals believe that they can improve their abilities, intelligence, and talents through their efforts, is termed as a growth mindset. So I just want to just get a feel from you, your thoughts on that, and how that's impacted certainly the early days. You're talking about, clearly when you had £200 in your pocket or wherever it is, then you can even go one or two ways in terms of that and believe in yourself. So tell me about your thought process and your thinking and the mindset that you had to say, okay, yeah, I thought it was going to be a different role, but now I've got to do something different, and I've got to make sure that I'm resilient enough mentally to be able to get this thing going.
Yeah. So look, I think that was not part of the plan, right? Being in that situation, that really wasn't part of my cunning plan to start this business and to make it global. To be in a situation after 4 months where I depleted all my funds and spent all my money on setting up the business, and we didn't have any revenues coming in.
And were you married at the time?
Sorry, say again.
Did you have your partner and kids at the time when you set up the business?
Yeah.
That's another rabbit hole we can go down. That's that is tough.
Yeah.
Family,
I had
and no money in the bank.
So what happened in my journey is I set the business up, and I won't go into the gory details of what happened when I decided to leave my last business.
Yeah.
But let's just say it was pretty quick when I left my last business. I stayed there for 9 years, and literally I started after something happened. I started the business, started Focus within 2 days.
Yeah.
So and in a nutshell, I had money, but we had quite an expensive lifestyle. I was making a lot of money, which translated into the family and things like that. So we had high expenses. So I thought to myself, here is 4 months to get us through that period. And I'm not going to need that 4 months money, because I'm going to start making money within, let's say, 2 months. Money's going to start coming in. And in the process of setting up the company as well, I needed to get funding for our contractors. So in the process of getting funding for the contractors and the overdraft for the business, of course, you've got to sign over your collateral, which was my house.
There you go.
Now I had 5 children, and 4 of them was at home. So, but there was no thought in my mind that signing over my home would lead to the home being repossessed or anything. It wasn't even it didn't even cross my mind, right, when I did it. But closer to the 4 months, as the 4 months got in, and I used to go home, and my wife used to say to me, "Have you made any money yet?" As we were sitting there having dinner, and obviously the answer was not yet. And it quickly went from "Have you made any money yet?" on a daily basis to "Are we going to lose our home?"
Yeah, can understand that.
And that was over the dinner table. So in the end, I kind of said we might lose our home as a result of me doing this. Yeah. But did I ever believe that we was going to? No, I didn't. There was never a period, even when I looked at that bank account and saw that I couldn't pay my mortgage the following month.
Yeah.
It never came into my mind that this might not work. I don't know why, but it never did.
That's interesting. So because ultimately one would argue that doing the same things time again and getting a different result, and in your case no sales, that's a sign of insanity. What propelled you, or what was the trigger that gave you the confidence that this thing is going to work?
My faith.
Yeah, can I explain? What does that mean?
It was all about faith. I would consider myself a religious person.
Yeah.
And I believed that I was supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And I believed that was what my journey was going to be. And I knew that I think I knew deep down anyway, that I knew that this is not going to work. This is just the test of how much I really want to have it. And and my God, it was a test. It really was. It was a test. And you know, it did go through my mind that I don't think I ever considered really giving up, but I thought I did. It did go from my mind on occasions that maybe you shouldn't have done this, you know. And then very quickly you go, no, you know, I had to do it. That's the reason why you made the decision in the first place. But very occasionally, I guess when you're a little bit, when your mindset gets a little bit low sometimes, you know, especially when you're approaching something like that in the first 4 months, it can go in your mind, and your brain kind of tells you maybe you shouldn't have done this, and you go, no, I should have done this. This is what I'm made to do, right?
There you go. It's quite funny because when I first made a big sleep into the sort of entrepreneur world as well, again, the thing you're going back, I would always attest to, is making sure you bring your wife, your partner, whoever else on the journey with you. And even that's tough, but I like that openness that you have over the dinner table, you know, because ultimately it's sometimes hard, you know, to share that elephant in the room with somebody that's closest to you, knowing that anything that you're going to be doing is going to impact somebody else. So I think for me, I wish I did a little bit more of that, what you did, you know, over the table, because ultimately, the first year was fantastic for me. But after that, you know, it was starting to, you know, dip down quite aggressively, and I didn't really share that as much as I should have done with Joanne, my wife. But ultimately, having that journey together is great, because now she's obviously benefited with the fruits of obviously that initial punt of faith that you did, you know, that you did in the early stages. So I love that. I love that element as well. What I'm going to also, we can probably just pivot a little bit. Tell me about the vision that you had. Obviously, you know, you set things up, but I appreciate that there's two aspects when we all set up our businesses. Sometimes it's a necessity thing. I mean, you know, we need to make some money. That's one aspect, the necessity of life. But clearly, sometimes we're driven by a bigger, like I said, purpose, vision, or whatever. What was the vision in your mind at that start? Starting your business. What were you thinking about? Because again, that's a non-mindset trait of successful entrepreneurs. They have a clear vision and purpose of where they're going.
Yeah. I didn't set up Focus to earn more money. I was earning more money in my last job. And so it wasn't a capital driven decision. It was more of a, like you say, a purpose driven decision, where I just thought, you know, I'm at this particular age at this time, and I'm more than capable of doing this. And if I don't do it now, when I shouldn't do it, if you look at your paycheck, right? It's very easy for entrepreneurs to go, why are you going to set up your own business? If it's money driven, I think you've got a problem, because once you start being successful as an entrepreneur,
I like that.
how much money is enough, right?
There you go.
But if it's something else, with me, it was more, as I said to you, I earn absolute fortunes more than I did in the first 5, 6, 7 years of this business. You know, working for another business. So it wasn't that. It was it was more about proving to myself that I could do this. And I wanted to set up a great business that really helped customers and reshaped our market and all these weird and wonderful things. The truth is, Wayne, when I set it up, I didn't really know. I had an idea of what I was trying to create, but I didn't really know what that looked like. And I kind of figured out. I kind of figured it out as I went along. And then you have that,
that's a journey, isn't it? Really? I mean,
you journey, and you have that eureka moment, and you go, "Oh, this is actually what we could create in 10 years."
Yeah, there you go. But your purpose, and the vision and purpose at the beginning, in terms of making something which is, you know, sustainable, which has some longevity, and you're renowned for it in the future, in terms of that legacy pays as well. Again, it's that drive that, you know, that, and hopefully you're starting to see that fulfilled going forward, you know, wherever it is. But you know, when you created something from nothing, it's an incredible feeling, you know, in that respect. And I suppose my question to you in terms of, you know, once you're clear in terms of what that purpose and vision is, you have a clear understanding of what that is from a mindset and a culture perspective. How do you get that rooted into the good people around you, your tenants, and for the people in the organization? How do you articulate that?
I think I think for me, it was just leading from the front. You know, you hear a lot of people say that if you work hard, people and you're successful, people are very happy with you. But if you are, if you become almost obsessed, that's when people start saying you're mad.
Yeah.
And what I did was I just led from the front. So when I started to bring people into the business, I worked to such an extreme that they could only follow, if that made sense. It
Yep.
made it the right thing for them to do, to follow that. And that then took them to the next level in their own performance.
Yep.
Because they saw someone around them who was able to work to that extreme. So I'm not saying they worked as hard, and my expectation wasn't that they did work as hard, but they certainly went up, 25, 30, 35%.
Yeah.
Because you imagine you're in a team and someone's doing that extreme, you're going to look at yourself quite clearly in the mirror and go, I should be doing more, really. And I think that's what happened. You'd have to ask them, Wayne. But I think that's what happened early doors. We just worked as a team to such an extreme that there was only one way this business was ever going to go, and that was to be a successful business.
That's a nice segue as well into my next little clip as well. I want to sort of get your feeling on thinking of this, because this notion of leadership and setting the scene and setting the culture and the direction in terms of is really important again. But that's a mindset thing as well. So, but let me just click this clip on as well. But before I do that, thanks for those. I haven't forgotten your messages on the chat. I will want to pose them to Lloyd later on as well. So keep them coming, please. I haven't forgotten them, but ultimately, yeah, use the chat facility in each of the platforms for that going forward as well. So thank you for that, and thank you for the question that's already come up. It's good. All right. So let's do this as well. I want you just to get your input on this little comment here, and it's about Elon Musk and obviously Steve Jobs from Apple as well.
I like the way Kevin O'Leary explained the difference between Elon Musk and Steve Jobs. It's very interesting, especially the fact that Elon is in there now with Doge and Vivek and Trump. I just want you to hear this, because Kevin has a very unique way of breaking things down in a simple way. Rob, go ahead and play this clip.
And there are different kind of people in life that I've learned in investing in many managers and entrepreneurs and working for some of them. And I would say there's the idea of signal and noise. And so if you think I worked for Steve Jobs, not a very nice guy, but he was 90% signal during the day and 10% noise. Noise being distractions that he would agree to be distracted by during the working day, and his working day was 20 hours. He wasn't that social a guy, and look what he achieved. Now, Elon Musk, I know with certainty, is 100% signal. I've never met a man like that, and look what he's achieved. It's unprecedented, and he would be a profound force if set free to go work on government to find inefficiencies, and I'd like to see that happen.
I like the way Kevin O'Leary.
So that should give you a flavor in terms of, the sort of this narrative between signal and noise. In other words, Elon Musk, totally driven, has anything else. He doesn't do social bits, social talk, whatever it is, maybe the odd tweets as always. But he's completely focused on the task and signal. Do you sort of transcribe some of that aspect in terms of your leadership style and approach?
Yeah, I think my leadership style was adapted over time, but I would certainly say that in the first 3 to 4 years getting the business off the ground, I could attest to that being very highly on the signal side.
Yeah. Because you talk about being the sort of you use the term extreme in terms of the way that you and your team worked, just to push the envelope out and get yourself known in the marketplace.
Yeah, 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 I know what those 20 plus hour days feel like, 7 days a week, and they're not nice, right? And yeah, unless you're really taking care of yourself. That's the thing that people doesn't. That's the thing that people don't
There you go.
prepare. Say us for, right? If you could say us, or human beings, right? Human beings are capable of enormous amounts of work if you push yourself, if you really push yourself. But no one actually says, well, in order to do enormous amounts of work, you have to make sure that you're exercising not only your body, but also your mind. You also need to make sure that you're taking the correct intake to your body, which is obviously food and water.
Perfect.
And these are the things that people don't say. And I think that that's probably why not many people work to that extreme. And is it fun doing that? In all honesty, no, it's not. There are, unless you're 100% driven like that, you will feel that there are better things to do with your hours that you have, right? But if
Yeah.
you are 150% driven like that, 20 hours plus 20 hours is very, very easily achieved. And when you're in it, it's the best time of your life. It really is. But when you're on the end of it, because there is a cliff edge
There you go. There
for a
you
human being.
go.
there is a cliff edge for a
I want
human
that.
being when you're like that. That's not nice. But
Yeah.
when you come and you bounce out of that cliff edge, then you go back to what you were doing originally. That's what I did anyway. It's the greatest time of your life because you achieve so much.
Yeah.
You really do. And it kind of puts your brain on a different wavelength when you're like that.
Go into detail. Tell us what that means. What does that mean to the average Joe Blogs? What that mean? What do you mean in terms of that? Just explain a little bit more briefly.
When you are working to the extreme like that, now that looks different to a lot of different people,
Of course,
right?
yeah.
But we all know whether we have pushed ourselves to the absolute limit.
Sure.
And you'll speak to individuals and they'll say things like, have you given everything today? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. I gave 70%, which
Sure.
really means 60%. So when you speak to someone who has absolutely given everything to that day, what happens to your brain is it's almost like, and I don't know the scientific the science around this, Wayne, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But I can tell you it's very real.
No.
When you are on that level where you're pushing yourself past what you feel like a human being can achieve,
Yeah.
your brain takes a different wavelength, and you're able to. For me, it was like being able to remember things from my past that were subsequently related to that piece of work that I was doing. So, say for example, I was trying to write an article or an essay, right?
Yeah.
And I was working on extreme tiredness, but not to the extent where you want to fall asleep. You're just working really, really hard.
Yeah, you're on adrenaline.
Your brain allows you to pull stuff in, to put stuff into that article that you would not be able to pull on if you wasn't in that frame of mind.
And that's really, really true. The trouble is people don't appreciate, and I know we've got this big mental health crusade. And I'm pleased, I do, I'm not saying that it's not real or whatever it is, but there's good stress and bad stress. And it's just getting that balance where, your body is in a particular process where it forces itself mentally and physically to do things that you wouldn't normally do if you were in a rested state. And I think that is a truism of how we are as human beings. I think the key is, like you said, is getting that balance right, where there's an element of good stress and pushing the envelope out, but at the same time recognizing your own limitations as an individual, which everybody's different. I think that's a problem. Elon Musk, if people want some people want to operate like Elon Musk, they'll be dead in 2 weeks. Others will, whatever may do. So the point is that you got to know yourself, and I do like that narrative of yourself. And I had a DVT just before my 50th birthday, and it wasn't because I was flying around. I was flying around a lot. I was actually in a conference, hosting some business leaders conference somewhere in Kent, and this thing came upon me, and the next thing I was in hospital. So. And nearly 6 foot under. So, you do understand that, you can operate at that level, but you've got to take care of yourself in terms of physically as well in the process. And that's something that's the crusade I've been on for the last, obviously, so many years going forward. But the point is, you rightly point out that, you can get to that levels, but it's knowing yourself and how to deal with it. I think that's important. Just want to talk about the element of failure, because again, you're talking about this cliff a bit as well. Tell me about a time where you feel, or whether it's in a business or there's an element within the business, doing something within the business, like a project that's not gone well, acquisition that's not gone well, or wherever it is, where it's hit rock bottom and you're thinking, how have I screwed this up? And the self-doubts creeping as well. How did you navigate yourself through that process as well? If you're able to give us an example, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. I won't go overly descriptive with this one.
No,
but the one that really, because there's been multiple failures actually.
All good people will have multiple. Don't worry, all good people know multiple.
Yeah, and I also welcome. I do welcome the failures, because I think that's how you learn, right? So, probably the worst failure of mine has been my skill set is I have a certain skill set which I believe that excels over most people, right? But then there are other parts of my skill set as an entrepreneur where I do need help around me.
Sure.
And we went through an extreme growth curve a few years ago, and as a result of that, we hired some new people into, let's say, our operations team.
Yeah.
And I made the decision on the ultimate individual to hire, and I made the mistake of assuming that you could just leave that person who was very senior to just handle that part of the business.
Yeah.
And I really didn't keep up the checkpoints.
Yeah.
And what happened was that a few months went past, and there's all these problems in this operational department that we had as a business, and there was two or three major errors by this individual, which all almost cost me the company.
Really?
So I've got, I'm at a point at that time where, I've got a business which is worth, 25, 30, 35 million pounds. And that's obviously been created from scratch. So that's absolutely amazing, but it's also taken all of this out of me to get it to that place. Yeah. And then you hire this person. I made the wrong call. Yeah. I didn't keep up with the checkpoints on that. Yeah. And a couple of really bad moves almost cost me everything.
Business. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I saw that as that was a failure. That was a failure on my part, because ultimately, when you're the CEO, right, it all comes back to one person.
100%.
You can't say, you cannot say that.
You've got to take responsibility.
Well, it's that person's problem. It's that person's fault. You can't do that because you're the CEO.
And that's interesting. This individual has pointed out, Janan, he says, would you say that having members in your team who share the same vision and appetite for success is key? Now, obviously, clearly, I think in your case, in that last example, you're talking about the checkpoints, the reporting elements, and making sure that the delegated authority is followed up with, okay, what's happening and are these KPIs being met, etc., etc. But at the same time, clear having everybody on the same page is super important.
Yeah, 100%. I would say, hey, Janan. I know Janan. Actually, we're connected. So, would you say that having members in your team that share the same vision and appetite for success is key? Yes, absolutely. I would. Yeah, that's really important because sometimes as an individual, and if you are someone who's the original founder, and everything's really being led by the ultimate vision's being led by you got to be able to scale your company, and in being able to scale your company, you need other good people around you that either think the same way as you, which is really tough to find. It's extremely tough to find people that think the same way, especially if you're on that kind of obsessed level, right? Why would someone feel that? Why would someone think the same way as that? They don't, right? Is the truth. But they share the vision of the business, and they're behind your vision as a business. And sometimes, and more often than not, I've found that having those really strong individuals around you, and opening the floor to ideas, and you might plant your idea to your team, but actually your team might have a much better idea than you, and being able to accept their idea is maybe better than yours, and then going with their idea. But it still has to be you that takes the accountability for it.
No, totally, 100%. And I think really, like I said, I remember when one of my businesses failed about 12 years ago, or whatever it is. And it was like, woe is me, business failed,
wasn't my fault.
It wasn't. There you go. That's right. And then that denial was about 6 months, to be fair, really. It was the accountant, it was this, it was that, whatever it is. And then eventually, it came around that, no, if I put the business in a particular vein and state and showed I had enough cash in the business and et cetera, et cetera. And so I learned that lesson. And come COVID, come back, wherever it is, when everybody was, laying off people left, right, and center, we were marketing like the hell out of it, out of the stuff. We were the only people that were communicating in town, because ultimately we had the cash and the resilience to be able to see our way through that difficult period. And so that's you learn from those things, from a banking crisis situation through to COVID. We learned a lesson in relation to, how to handle those turbulent situations when they come about. So, okay, that's good. One thing I wanted to really, I'm conscious of our time. Oh my gosh, so much going on. But anyway, certainly a couple of things I wanted to talk about. One of the sort of elements of mindset that good business, successful leaders have is the element of risk taking. And obviously you shared a little bit about that, about bringing somebody into your leadership team, key lieutenants, and it's just not working out. But it's a risk, because whether they share the same DNA, focus, culture, values, etc. Tell me about how your sort of risk appetite is and how you manage risk as well, because you gave me a lovely example. I remember once about COVID in terms of those businesses. So you may want to just communicate about your thinking around risk and taking risk and driving the business forward.
Yeah. So COVID was probably the biggest risk I've ever taken, right? Barring setting up a company and putting my house on the line. But we'd already built a successful company pre-COVID, so there was already a value there, and COVID kind of went like this for us. So my father unfortunately caught COVID in February, and he passed away in April. And I thanks. And I had always told my dad that I was going to do amazing things with this company. So he understood what I was doing with focus and all these types of things, right? So when the world went on retreat in COVID, I'm talking about April, May time. It actually started a little bit earlier than that. We as a business, we never made any redundancies through COVID. We did put quite a few people on furlough, but mainly the trainees that we had. So I looked at the team at the time. I didn't know what was going to happen, so I had to assume the worst and hope for the best during COVID. And during COVID, we never grew in the first 6 months of COVID, but we didn't lose money either. In fact, throughout that whole year of 2020, there was one month where I think we lost about £3,000, which is great, right? When a lot of other companies were shedding their staff.
Absolutely,
like
100%, yeah.
So I'd made these promises to myself, to my family, to my father, and everything. And then in May, I'm sitting there one night, and bear in mind everyone was working from home, and I had a few. The team was probably about 12 people, say, at that point in time, and I was sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, we're not growing, which is not what I promised the team, not what I promised myself, and not what I promised my dad, and we're not really on the defensive. We're almost on the defensive. We're just as a business, we're rolling along, just trying to survive, rather than going, right, we are going to be growing, we are going to be doing this, we are going to be doing that. Sure. And I thought, it's not what I promised anyone. So the following day, I got my team on a Teams call, and I said to them, I explained what I've just articulated to you there, and I said, we've got X amount of money in the bank. And what we're going to do now is we're going to go out and we're going to hire as many people as we can find, good people that we can find. And we're also going to move offices to a much larger office to accommodate those people when we come back into the office. And guys, if it doesn't work, we're going to go out of business and you're all going to be looking for a new job. And it was kind of like, I remember that as though it was yesterday, because their faces all dropped. And I think they thought I was going mad, but I was just in this state of, I was just in this high performance state, and I just didn't want to be in the state that I was in, which was a defensive state anymore.
Yeah.
And that decision was fundamentally the reason why we grew 480%, because our customers, maybe the timing was right, I don't know, but we hired all these people when all of our competitors were letting people go.
So good people were let go, and obviously you pick up the good people.
We picked up the good people. So we picked up the good people in our industry, and where we'd positioned ourselves in the global marketplace, we were ideally positioned to capitalize on a cloud growth market. Yeah. Whereas previously it was mainly what you call an on-premise market. So when businesses came back to work and started to get serious about their growth again, which was probably July, August time, we were ideally positioned to capitalize on that. So that's what happened.
But how did you mitigate that risk? I mean, obviously, it scares the willies out of everybody, but ultimately, clearly you weren't going to let the business go bust for that sake, unless you're telling me otherwise. But so what did you do? What processes and systems you put in place to say, okay, this is working. Let's really just drive it even more further.
Well, I think that there's a saying, right? I think it's by Tony Robbins, or one of those types of individuals, that when someone's faced with either being a success or going to die, not die literally, but you know what I mean, you're either going to be a success or you're going to die. Yeah. People normally become a success, and what I think I did with the company at that point in time was I portrayed that confidence in our ability to be a success through really tough times when everyone was feeling down in the dumps. and we didn't have a choice. We were either going to be a success or we were going to die. And was I one-on-one, Wayne, was I willing to let that happen? I think I was, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I was. But luckily, thank God, that didn't happen. Would I I look back at that time, there's a few times in every entrepreneur's journey where there's going to be a few separate decisions which are going to
100%.
fundamentally have a huge impact in your journey. And that was definitely one of those. I could have quite easily strung back there, not hired anyone, rid the wave of the market, which the wave was quite low at the point in time,
Sure.
and maybe we could have hired in 2021, and we wouldn't have grown 480% through that.
Yeah.
So I think when you put people in a situation where it's either it's plan A and there is no plan B, people achieve plan A.
No, interesting. And that sort of growth mindset, obviously is typical of you in that respect. And do you still have the hunger for growth? And tell me what's the next thoughts on. I appreciate you don't want to share too much, but what's the sort of thing going through your mind to maintain that trajectory going forward? Because it is another quality, growth mindset of good entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I'm hungrier than I've ever been, actually.
Interesting.
And
when you get older, it's weird, isn't it? It's weird.
Yeah, I'm hungrier. I'm hungrier than I've ever been. I think that I very, very much still got the ultimate goal in mind, but what's perhaps changed in my mindset is that I've accepted that perhaps I'm going to need some help along the way, and I mean kind of outside investment help to make Focus Cloud where I ultimately want to take it. But the great thing about myself, right, and it's not changed for years, right? I'm really not money motivated. So you could have a business generating $1 billion dollar revenue. I don't necessarily need to benefit from that. I just want a business that does that.
That does well. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's good enough for me, right?
Yeah.
So that's always been the goal, and I think that's the beauty of, like I said, if you've got like this mindset of you want to make a certain amount of money as an entrepreneur, there is going to be a time when you make that money, and what happens then? What are you going to do then?
And we talked about this before, obviously, in our private discussions, and not only in terms of this concept of what is enough, but in the sense that, you drive the nice fancy car, you have your nice fancy holidays, but so what? This is not what drives us as human beings, and I think it's creating that legacy, that enduring element that when we are past and we've done our bit, who's going to take that next step going forward to make whatever we've created better or whatever. So for me, it's all that elements about legacy, whether it's the community basketball club that I've been running for 25 years, it's set up so that, next 50 years, it will continue to grow and serve the community through to the healthcare businesses. I'm going to make a massive difference to the folk in America, etc. Whatever it is, once I'm gone, who's going to take that mantle forward? And I think for me, and like you said, for yourself, is that's that purpose element. What's the next 100 years, 200 years look like?
Yeah, I think for me, it's about helping those individuals that have helped me to get this business to a stage, that it has, right? Because it's not been alone. It definitely hasn't been alone, and there's been certain individuals, part of that core team where, without those people, we wouldn't be as successful or as large as or whatever as we are today. So I actually want to see. Yes, I want to do well myself. Of course I do, right? But I want my family to be secure and all those types of things. But actually, I want to see other people become multi-successful and help their families and create generational wealth for their families and things like that. So that's as important to me as creating that for myself, to be honest.
Cool. All right, just a few more minutes left, but I just want to grab one question in as well. And if you've got another question, you can need to get it in now. Otherwise, we're going to be finishing very, very shortly anyway. But this is quite a nice poignant one for the end of that. You know, if you can go back and do it all again, what would you change? And how would your let me add a little preface to some of that as well. And what mindset elements would you have hopefully adopted sooner rather than where you are now? I appreciate hindsight is a wonderful thing, but there you go.
Yeah, if you could go back and do it all again, what would you change? I think that if I could go back again, I would probably change. I went into running my own company thinking that everyone else that I would bring into the business would love my business in the same way that I did. That was probably one of my mistakes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until after a year that I realized that some of the individuals that I'd hired really didn't love my business as I did, and they needed to be exited pretty quickly. So I think that would be what I would change. I would have my eyes more wide open to the fact that there are some people who just don't think like me.
There you
go. And would I accept? I don't think I would accept that. No, I wouldn't accept it. I would be more careful about who I hired at certain stages of the company, and make sure that I had my eyes wide open at all times, and not just hire people and go, they think exactly the same way about this business than I do. They're going to do a great job. They're going to work extremely hard, because the truth is, when you find people who share in your vision or want to enhance your vision, and will work really hard, maybe not as hard as you will, because why would they? They don't own the business, but they want to work very, very hard. You have to take really good care of those people, because
100%.
they are super rare. They're super rare. They are probably the 1% of everyone that you'll hire.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't think like that when I started it. I just thought everyone's going to be great. Everyone's going to think the way, and that would be what I would change.
Well, thank you, Lloyd. As you know, I echo obviously what AZ says. Family, legacy, and partnership are great takeaways. It's very true, and we've covered so much of our time today. Let me just do a little wrap up in relation to the sort of 5 key elements I've hopefully been talking about, and you can take away. And these are the top 5 elements that are the mindset of successful entrepreneurs. So it doesn't matter whether we're in a position or corporate position or leading the team, wherever it is, then these are the qualities that distinguishes those individuals who really want to go forward and excel at themselves than most. And this element of resilience, the sort of mental element to adapt, to be able to handle success as well as failure, and that's really important. How to, as I was always saying about failure, in terms of not what you fail at, is what you do next. That's going to be important, and that element of getting up and making a difference is super important. That adaptability, with Lloyd ably talked about the sort of ability to pivot during COVID, as well as risk taking as well, taking those calculated risks. Having a clear vision and purpose. You need to have a purpose in mind in relation to where you want to go, what you're trying to achieve, and that drives how you think and who you relate to, and how you bring partners on board, and how you build your team. That clear purpose, and whether these people that are coming around you are going to help you to achieve your purpose. And that 5 elements of growth mindset is super important as well. You've got to be always not only thinking about the business and those around you, and that Lloyd's really said that he wants to make those people around him, successful as well, but also yourself in terms of your physical, mental, and spiritual, elements. You've got to be at the same time the best version of yourself. If you are as good as you were last year, then that is a potential issue going forward as well. So hopefully those are some of the key takeaways going forward. let me just finish off and talk about the sort of next stages as well. Please do not hesitate to contact us if you need be. You can get hold of Lloyd on LinkedIn. Follow him. He does a lot of podcasts himself and musings and some of the nice videos he's done on LinkedIn. So please follow him as well. But again, thank you again, Lloyd. Really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man, and I really appreciate your time today. So thank you again. Thank you all, and wish you and have a pleasant afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Thank you.